We are going to start the Mishnah on Daf Chafei Avaral. I believe today is Yom Yerushalayim, no? Today is Yom Yerushalayim because yesterday was the day that they took over the old city. Okay. Zok the Heilige Mishnah on Daf Chaf Hey Avaral. Echad Devarim Shalatzmai. Sai, when it comes to subject matter that's relative to yourself. Ve'echad Devarim Shalacherim. Such as Rashi says, she'etein leploini. So it's something that's related to somebody else. To make another, I'll give Ploni something. V'echad dvarim sheyesh ben mamish. Sai, things that are concrete. V'echad dvarim she'ein bahen mamish. Rashi says, she'ein bahen mamish. Trei gavni mashma. There's two ways to have yesh bahen mamish. Or she'ein bahen mamish. One is she'ein bahen mamish k'loin sheina. Right? If you swear you're going to sleep, you're not going to sleep. Shina is an intangible item. Umashma, another connotation of Ein Ben Mamish is She'ein Ben Hano going to Ezrak Tzur Loyom. There's no value to the nether. Ein Ben Mamish, you swear about something that has zero impact, such as I will throw a stone into the water. It doesn't impact anybody at all. Okay, so side varm She'ein Ben Mamish, side varm She'ein Ben Mamish, you could swear on. Ketzad. Amar Shvua she'etein leish ploni, or v'shalo yetein. I will give ish ploni a rock, or I will not give him a rock, or shenasati, or you swore on l'sha'ovar, which is I gave him something, or I didn't give him something, or she'ishan, I will sleep, or v'shalo ishan, I will not sleep. That's on lahaba, and on l'sha'ovar is sheyashanti v'shalo yashanti, she'ezrek tzror layom v'shalo ezrek, or I won't throw. She'zerakti v'shalo zerakti. So all of these were examples of shavuos that can apply equally to something in the past as it can apply to something in the future, and it's lahara lahitiv. It's you could swear yes, you could swear no. So that is how agile the shvuah has to be. So let's just focus for one moment. The Torah, when it talks about the shvuah for which you bring a korban, the shvuah's bitui for which you bring a korban if you violate, the Torah says if you're a nishba lahara oy lahetiv, to do something bad for yourself, like you're going to swear that I'm not going to eat, oy lahetiv, or to help yourself that I will eat. I guess that's a matter of perspective, whether or not that's lahara or lahitiv, but that's what it's talking about. Now, the Torah is also specifically talking about a shvu in the future. You're swearing lahara or lahitiv. You're not swearing about something in the past. But our Mishnah is saying that the chiyuv for the shvuah will come even if it's something in the future. I'm sorry, even if it's something in the past. Even though it's lahara or lahitiv, the Mishnah lists of cases of the past. She'nosati v'shalo nasati, she'yashanti v'shalo yashanti. So even on the sha'ovar, our Mishnah says you would still bring the korban. Rabbi Shmuel argues and says, "Einei chayiv ela ha'asad lavai." Rabbi Shmuel argues and says, "You're only mechuyev if you swear on the future. I will do something. I will not do something." Shenemar l'hara'ai lahitiv, which is clearly something related to the future. Amar Rabbi Kiva. To Rabbi Kiva said, Im kain ainli el dvarim sheyesh ben hara v'atava, v'dvarim she'ein ben hara v'atava minayin. If you're going to focus on l'hara ilaytiv, and you're going to say it means davke, something that's in the future only, and not something in the past, well, then you also have to say that it only applies if you could swear hein and swear lav. Omar loy no lav dafke, because meribui hakosov. There's a ribui in the pasuk that includes even if it's ein bahen harav atav. Omar loy, so Rabbi Kiva said you can't have it both ways. In ribu hakosov lakach, if you're going to say that the Torah includes something that's not mamish lara lahetiv, So then Riba calls of Lakach. So then who said that Shvu in the future is Dafka? Maybe it also means a Shvu in the past. So we have a Machloikis as to whether or not a Shvua has to be Dafka in the future or if it can even be in the past. And where Rabbi Kiva holds, it could even be in the past, and Rabbi Shmuel holds only if it's a Shvu about the future. Tana Rabbanon. Chaymer b'nedarim b'shvuos and chaymer b'shvuos b'nedarim. There are ways in which nedarim are more chomer than shvuos, and there's a way in which shvuos are more chomer than nedarim. Chaymer b'nedarim. In what way are nedarim more chomer than shvuos? Shanedarim chalim al dvar mitzvah. Another could be chal on the dvar mitzvah kedvar harshos. Masha'enken b'shvuos. Which means, if someone swears, look Rashi, if someone swears koidim sukkah shani oisa, or lulav shani noidel, it will be usher to sit in the sukkah, and it will be usher to shake lulav. Umefarish time of the Gemara, umedar mefarish time of the perak elu mois. Masha'enken b'shvuos. Kiditnan b'mislisin v'yalef l'kamon mekori. We're going to learn that psukim. Exactly. When the difference, if you say, I swear I'm not going to shake lulav, there you're literally being nishba levatlas a mitzvah. You cannot do that because you're mushba v'aymed mar Sinai to be mekayim the mitzvah. It won't work. But nedarim isn't asking you to do any mitzvah. Nedarim is on the chevtzah. I'm not allowed to have a noah from this lulav. I'm not allowed to have a noah from the sukkah. That's why it's chal, because it's not directly opposing the mitzvah. It's sort of creating a scenario where you will be unable to be mekayim the mitzvah. But you're not answering yourself from doing the mitzvah itself. Chomer b'shvuos. In what respect is a shvua more chomer than a neder? Shashvua is chala al davar shein b'mamish. Kedavar sheish b'mamish. Just like it's chal on I will not eat this piece of cake, it could also say I will not sleep. Shina is a davar shein b'mamish. Mashen kebenedarim. You cannot say that shina is usher to me. That doesn't work. You have to answer something specific. Although there is a way to make a neder on sleep. If you look at Rashi, neder elei chalal shina koin koinim shani yoshin. The koinim is a loshen hektishu. If you're going to say, how are you going to make something usher like hektish? You could say this cake should be usher to me like hektish, but sleep should be usher to me like hektish. Hektish can't be chal on sleep. Aval, there is a way to do it. Koinim eini b'shina, that will be chal, because then you're putting an issue on your eye. I'm answering my eye to have sleep. Okay. So Zok Tahela Gemara. Keitad Omar Shvua She'etein LePloini V'Shaloyetein. Frank Gemara, what is exactly did you swear? What are you going to give Ploni? My etein. If what your promise was that you will give money to Ploni, and Ploni is an oni, and you're with that fulfilling the mitzvah of tzedakah, so then you cannot say a Shvua Shaloyetein, because a mushba v'aymed me'ar sinayu. The pasuk says you must give tzedakah. Zok to Gemara, what we're referring to is a matana la'ashir where there's no mitzvah involved. Nevertheless, that's called a shvua. That's called a shvua she'ein by mamish, and that's something that will work. Okay, she'ishan v'shalo ishan. Any fact Gemara. Is that so? Rabbi Yochanan said, so you're telling me you could make a shvua that prohibits yourself from sleeping. At this point, the Gemara thinks that it means indefinitely. Shvua shalisha means not for a certain number of days, rather means I'm never allowed to sleep. Which is something that's impossible. So it leaves the category of shvuas bitui, and it instantly becomes a shvua shav, because you made a shvua about something that's impossible. Therefore, malka noisai for a shvua shav, the yoshan altar, and he could sleep right away, meaning his shvua never took effect. It was just a shvua shav. So Gemara, you're right. Hasam Dharma Gimel, he said, I will not sleep for 3 days. That's impossible. Hagad Le'er Gimel, he just said open-ended shlo yishan. We fartaich it that it means I will not sleep the amount of time that it's possible not to sleep. That's how you explain his words. He meant that let's say a person could go without sleep for 2 days. It means 2 days. That will be a regular shvus biter. She'ezrek tzur liyam v'shalei ezrek. That's the second example of something she'ein by mamish. It has no impact whether or not someone throws a rock into the yam. Itmar effect Gemara. And here's where it gets a little bit complicated. So we got to focus over here. Shavua shezorak koloini tzor liyam. Someone makes a shvua that Reuven threw a rock into the yam, or he made a shvua shaloi zorak. Reuven did not throw a rock into the yam. Is that considered a valid shvua? Rav Omer Chayiv. Rav says this is a valid shvua, and you would be chayiv for shvuas bitoy, meaning if you were wrong. Ushmuel Omar Potter, and Shmuel says you would be Potter for such a shvua because this shvua is not a valid shvua. Rav Omer Chayiv because Isay Belavahain, because you could swear either that he swore or that he didn't swear. It goes both ways. Since it can go both ways, it's a valid shvua. Ushvuel Omer Potter because Lesa Belahaba. You can't swear that Reuven will throw the rock or Reuven will not throw the rock because you have no control over that. You cannot swear to be mechayiv yourself with a shvua to do something that's out of your control. So therefore, this is an example of a shvua that's Isa Belavahain, but it's not Isa Belahaba, right? How can you control if Yen is going to throw a rock? No, he swore about someone else, right? This was Shavuous Azar Ploini swore Leon. What you don't have control over it. It's not fully within your control. So Zok Tamar Lema beplukted the Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva Kamif. Let's say this machlokes Rav and Shmuel is exactly the same machlokes as Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva in our Mishnah. It's not be learned in our own Mishnah. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Eini Chayiv Ela Al HaOsid Lovei. You're not chayiv on a shvua of l'sha'abar. You're only chayiv on a shvua of l'haba. This question that we're discussing is a shvua on l'sha'avar here, right? So Shmuel says, "Ein chayiv ela la'asad lava." You only muchayiv on a shvua on l'haba. Shenemar l'hara aylahitiv. Clearly, that's something about the future. Amalei Rabbi Kiva in our Mishnah, imkain ein li el dvarim sheishbon hara b'tava. That's only if you could swear yes or no. How would you be able to swear if you're makbid b'dafka on how the Torah presented it? Well, then you shouldn't be able to make a shvua if you can't go both ways. Amaloi, so Rabbi Shmuel said, no, that prat miribui hakosav. So Rabbi Kiva said that you can't have it both ways. Amaloi riba hakosav lakach, riba hakosav lakach. So let's suggest that the Rav is the Omar Rabbi Kiva. Rav holds the good shvua, holds like Rabbi Kiva, that you don't look on the dafka of the lahara lahativ. And therefore, even though you cannot swear on the lahaba, because you can't control if somebody else is going to throw a rock into the yam or not, but you could still swear on l'shavar and it'll be a valid shvua. Ushmuel Rabbi Shmuel. Shmuel will say no. Dafka, you could only swear on a lahaba. You cannot swear on the l'shavar. So Zok to Gemara lav dafka. Because Alibid Rabbi Shmuel kula amaloi pli. For sure, Rabbi Shmuel cannot hold that this shvua, that's a shvua of lahaba, will be a valid shvua. Why? Hashta milsa de isib lahaba loy mechayiv Allah Rabbi Shmuel. If you swear a shvua about lishavar, right? If you swear a shvua about a lishavar, even though you could have also made this shvua on halaba, such as if you swore I threw a rock into the yam, or I threw a rock, or I didn't throw a rock into the yam, right? That wouldn't be a good shvua if I couldn't swear it on laba. So milsa de isib laba loy mechayiv Allah Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel holds even if I could swear about something in the future, I could swear I will throw the rock or I won't throw the rock. Even though I could make that shvua, I still can't make the shvua on the l'shavar because Rabbi Shmuel holds a hard and fast rule. A shvua on the l'shavar does not qualify at all as a shvuas bitoy. So Madech Rabbi Shmuel holds that even if I could swear about this subject matter, l'haba, I cannot swear about it on the l'shavar. Milta the lesser l'haba, at the type of shvur that you can't even swear about lahaba if you wanted to, such as about yener throwing a rock, mi boy, surely you can't swear on l'shavar. So Rabbi Shmuel holds you can never swear on the l'shavar at all. So if you cannot swear on Elisha Avar, something that you could swear on Allah Haba, you for sure can't swear on Elisha Avar, something that you can't even swear on Allah Haba. So surely in our case, he would for sure hold the shua wouldn't work. So Rav could never shtim with Rabbi Shmuel. But keep pligi, but maybe Rabbi Akiva could also hold like Shmuel. So keep pligi Rabbi Akiva, who holds that we're not makbid on dafka lahara or lahaitiv, we're not makbid dafka on the future. So Rav Rabbi Akiva, Rav would fit into Rabbi Akiva very simple. We're not makbid. So therefore, even though you cannot swear about Yena throwing a rock for the lehaba, his shvua Yena for the shavar will be a valid shvua. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel would say, no, Rabbi Akiva would agree to me. Ad kan loy mechayiv Rabbi Akiva hasam. You know why Rabbi Akiva was mechayiv in the Mishnah? Because l'sha'avar, on the shvua of l'sha'avar, that's because Ela Milsa the Isa bilahaba. They're mechayiv Rabbi Akiva l'sha'avar. When does Rabbi Akiva say that if you made a shvua on a l'sha'avar, even though it doesn't fit the exact form of the Torah of lahara or lahetiv, but it works because you could technically have made this type of shvua on this subject matter about something in the future. But if it's a subject matter that you couldn't possibly have ever sworn on a laba, such as that Yether will throw a rock, or that Yether won't throw a rock, you couldn't possibly make such a shvua loy. There, even Rabbi Akiva would agree. In our case of Rav and Shmuel, even Rabbi Akiva might agree that you wouldn't be able to make this shvua of Elisha Avar, since it would be impossible to make this shvua in Alaba. Gewaltig. Zok to Gemara. So what we've done is we've said if you want to compare Rav and Shmuel's machlokes as to whether or not you could swear on Elisha Avar about a subject that you wouldn't possibly be able to swear on Alaba, according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's a non-starter. You for sure wouldn't be able to. Because according to Rabbi Shmuel, you could only swear on Labo. You can't swear on Lishavar, no matter what. But according to Rabbi Akiva, who normally says a shvua of a Lishavar is valid, maybe it's only valid if this type of shvua could also be sworn on a Lehabo. And that could be the machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Zok to Gemara, good, but there's another machlokes that will also impact this shaila of Rav and Shmuel. Lema beplukta, turning on Talmud Beis, the Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the Rabbanon Kamifli. There's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and the Rabbanon that will impact this shaila of Rav and Shmuel of whether or not you could swear on Aleh Sha'avar something that couldn't possibly be sworn about for Aleh. Zok Rashi, the Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, what was the case? Anishba l'kai misamitzvah. The subject matter related to the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is someone who swore to be l'kai mitzvah. It's not about someone who swore shaloi l'kayim mitzvah. So let's see what the case is. Maybe the machlokes Rav and Shmuel is totally the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira v'Rabbanan Kamifli. The Tanan we learned in the Mishnah. Nishpa levatel es hamitzvah. Someone swore, I will not shake lulav. V'loi bitel, and he violated shvua. He actually shook lulav. Potter is potter because that's called nishpa levatel es mitzvah. Everybody agrees nishba levatl a mitzvah is not a valid shvua. So there's no din shvua speeches. There's no korban that you bring if you violate a shvua. But what if I swore l'kayim is a mitzvah? Someone swore I will be mekayim the mitzvah of lulav today, and v'loi kayim, and he didn't listen to a shvua. So not only didn't he listen to the Torah who said you have to shake the lulav, he didn't listen to his shvua that was mekayim to do the mitzvah until it's lulav. Potter, again, there's no validity to that shvua. He's potter on korban shvua. He's not potter from missing the mitzvah. Shahaya bedin, because there's an argument to make. You could have made an argument that you would be chayiv in this case of nishba l'kayim is a mitzvah. Kediver Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, because according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, nishba l'kayim is a mitzvah would be a good shvua. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, uma im harashus. If you made a shvua that you're going to cook an egg today, where there's no mitzvah to cook an egg, yet if you made such a shvua, you would be chayiv for that shvua. Mitzvah shemushba lamahar Sinai. a mitzvah that you swore to do, where you already have a chiyuv from Sinai. So there's even a stronger reason why you should be mekayim the shvua. Einoi din shechayiv alav. So Rabbi Yehuda ben holds if you're nishbal akayim is a mitzvah, the shvua is valid, and therefore you'd be chayiv. But Amr Loi, the people who argue on Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira told Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, we disagree with you. Lo yimamrit b'shvuas harashus. By shvuas harashus, where there's no mitzvah compelling you to do what you're swearing to compel yourself to do, you know why over there the shvuas chal shekein asa ba laf kahin. There you could swear I won't cook an egg, just like you could swear I will cook an egg. So you have the lahara lahativ. You can swear either way. Timer b'shvuas mitzvah. But if you're swearing l'kaimis a mitzvah, there the shvua would not be valid. You know why? Because in a case of swearing to be mekayim mitzvah, you don't have the option to have sworn the opposite way, that you wouldn't be mekayim the mitzvah. Because that everybody agrees would not be a good shvua. Timer b'shvuas mitzvah shekein loy asa ba laf kahin. So the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and the Chachamim is nishba l'kayim is a mitzvah. Everybody holds nishba levatel is a mitzvah. You cannot do. It's not a valid shvua for a shvuas bitoy. But Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira holds nishba l'kayim is a mitzvah will be a good shvua, and the Rabbanan hold it won't be a good shvua. What is it totally in? It's totally in if every shvua that if a shvua in order to be under the class of shvuas bitoy to be mechuyev a korban, if you're mevatel it, does that shvua have to have agility that you could swear it either lav or hay? If you cannot swear it both ways, then it's not a valid shvua. So zok to Gemara, lema Rav the Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Rav who holds that the shvua of that Reuven threw a rock or didn't throw a rock, that's a good shvua, even though you couldn't swear about it in the future, will be like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Just like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says that you don't mamish need lahara or lahativ, because he holds you could swear even though it's not possible to swear both ways. So too, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is probably not makvid on whether it's on a lahaba or on a lishofar. He learns it's all lavdavka. Ushmuel dama karbonan. And Shmuel says that if you cannot possibly make this shvu as a lahaba, then it's not valid as a lishavar. He probably holds it to Rabbanan that you have to follow exactly the format of the Torah. And just like the Rabbanan say, you have to be able to swear hein and lav in order for any shvu to be good, he would also agree that you have to be able to swear it on a lahaba and a lishavar. Zok to Gemara, I'll leave it to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. According to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, who is wide open, he says the pasuk is lav davka because hein or lav works. In other words, the lahara or lahativ is lav davka. The same way the hara or lahativ is lav davka. Lagabe hein v'lav, the lahara and lahativ could also be lav davka. Lagabe that it has to be on al haba. Talib Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira kul amalei pligi. Hashta lav hein loy boy. If you don't need lav hein, which is before Torah, lahara or lahativ. So if you're going to say anything is dafka, it would be the lav and hein, because the Torah says black and white, la ra'i la hitiv. If that's lav dafka, hash the lav hein le boy, la bo v'l'shover boy, you're going to be medayik that both of the examples of shvu in the Torah are shvus about the future, la ra'i la hitiv. So you can be medayik that al l'shover won't be a good shvua. Even when the Torah says beferish la ra'i la hitiv, we're saying is lav dafka. So if lahara lahativ is lav dafka, surely the fact that it's in future tense and not in past tense is also lav dafka. So according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, you would have to, even Shmuel would have to agree that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira would hold that the shvua does not have to be a shvua of lahaba. A shvua of l'shavar alone would be a good shvua. He pligi, but where, according to who will Rav and Shmuel argue, it's aliba de Rabbanan. Shmuel will hold like the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say, just like they're makbid on lavain, they would also be makbid on a shvua. It has to be a shvua of lahaba. But Rav would argue, and he would say, Kiloi mechayvi Rabbanan. Where did the Rabbanan say that it's not a good shvua? That's belavain. So therefore, lishba l'kaimis a mitzvah or lishba l'vatlas a mitzvah is not a good shvua. Dichsiv lahar lahetiv behedya. because it says beferish the shvua has to be able to be either yes or no. The Meiri Buya de Kroy also Zamafurish, we're being medayik that it only applies to a shvua that can apply to a lahaba, not only to a lishavar. They're mechtesi, maybe mechayvui, maybe even the Rabban would agree that that would be a good shvua. So at the end of the day, we have a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. If you have a shvua that you could not possibly make as a lahaba, it's a shvua that's only possible to be done as a lishavar. Is that a good shvua? So, according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's for sure not a good shvua. According to Rabbi Kiva, that's where there would be a machlokes. According to Rabbi Dubin B'Seir, it for sure would be a good shvua, but it's only machlokes according to the Rabban of Rabbi Kiva. So, if we take the two machlokes of Tanoims that we discussed here, the machlokes Rav and Shmuel would be only according to the Rabbanon of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and Rabbi Kiva. According to those two shittas is where we have a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Okay, gewaltig. Zok to Gemara back. The Mazav Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna is going to ask a kasha on Shmuel. Shmuel said that you cannot make a shvua on a lisha avar if you wouldn't possibly be able to make the shvua on the laba. Again, to remind yourselves, what was the case? Someone saw a Reuven threw a rock into the yam yesterday, or Reuven did not throw a rock into the yam yesterday. Shmuel knows that's not a valid shvua. You know why? Because you wouldn't have been able to make the shvua that Shmuel will throw a rock into the yam tomorrow, or that Shmuel will not throw a rock into the yam tomorrow. So since you can't make such a shvua, therefore even the shvua of the sha'avar is not going to be a valid shvua. If someone made the following shvua, I'm sorry, it's not a shvua yet. Someone tells his friend, I didn't eat anything today. Or he tells his friend, I didn't put on tefillin today. And his friend says, oh yeah, I don't believe you. Mashbiachani. I'm being mashbiah you, swear that what you just said is correct. V'yamar amen. And the person said amen. So he effectively made a shvua that he didn't eat today. He effectively made a shvua that he didn't wear tefillin today. So the halach is chayiv, these are valid shvuas. According to Shmuel, where you cannot make a shvua on a lisha avar, if you wouldn't be able to make that same shvua on a lehaba, we have a little problem here. Bishlam aloya chalti, that is not about a mitzvah. It's not like kaimis a mitzvah. Talavatl is a mitzvah. So isay beloyachel. The same way you made a shvua aloya chalti in the past, you could have just as easily made a shvua in the future. So since the shvua will work for lehaba, the shvua of the shavar is a valid shvua. Eloloya nachdi. If someone made a shvua that he didn't wear tefillin, would he have been able to make that same shvua in the lehaba? Would he have been able to swear that he will not wear tefillin tomorrow? No, that's nishba levatel a mitzvah. Eloloya nachdi mi isa beloya niach. So according to Shmuel, even the shvua of loya nachdi shouldn't be a good shvua because you couldn't possibly swear that of loya niach, right? Just like in Shmuel's case, where the shvua that Reuven threw a rock into the yam yesterday is not a valid shvua because you can't possibly swear that Reuven should throw a rock into the yam tomorrow. So it's the same thing with the tefillin. How could the shvua of loy hinachdi be a good shvua if you wouldn't have been able to make that same shvua in future tense, because that would be nishba levatlas a mitzvah. Zok Gemara, who asked this kasha? Rav Hamnuna, and Rav Hamnuna answered the kasha, and it's litzdaven katani. In fact, you're 100% right. According to Shmuel, it's not a valid shvua legabe hilchas shvuas bitoy legabe bringing a carbon if you violate the shvua. So loya chalti, when you made the shvua loya chalti, that is considered a good shvua, and it fits into the category of shvuas bitoy. Therefore, lekarbon, when the brayse paskin chayiv, it means you'll be chayiv a carbon if you violated it b'shogi. But in the case of loya nachdi, it's takanah shvuas bitoy, and if you violated b'shogi, you wouldn't bring a carbon oil b'yored. What does the brayse mean to say that if someone made such a shvua and it was false, he's chayiv? L'malchus. Malchus you get anyway. Malchus you get whether or not it fits into the exact category. Anybody who makes a shvua shav or a shvua sheker or a shvuas bita and purposely violates it, he gets malchus. That has nothing to do with all these limudim that we're discussing. Is only legabe the carbon. Beautiful. Next kasha. Masav Rava.
From shvuas to items that in the future or in the past doesn't look bad.
Shvuas items is different, and the Gemara is going to mix in shvuas items shortly. Shvuas items has a separate set of rules, and because the Torah is beferish, right? Zog to Gemara. Masav Rava. Rava has a kasha, also on Shmuel. Again, Shmuel said if you cannot make the shvua to be a lehaba, you could also not make the shvua on a lishavar. So what does the Mishnah say? Ezoi he shvua shav. What is an example of a shvua shav? That's nishba l'shanish as how you do l'adam. For instance, the Omer al Omid Shaleven Shusal Zav. That's a shvua shav that also doesn't go into the parsha of shvua shmita with kabbalas. A shvua shav automatically the shvua is nothing and you get patch. The Omer Ula, and Ula said that's only if it's so obvious to everybody that this amud that was really made out of Evan, you swore that it was made out of Zav. It has to be obvious. What's the litmus test? What's the threshold of obvious? Three people have to know that this item is. Three people have to know that this item is Zav. Rashi says, "Shekfar yodu shloisha ba'oisei amud shahu shaleven." Who the havish shvusha? When is the shvusha? That's only if three people already know that this is Evan and not Zav. So now it's called a dover hayadu. The midi the yadu by klasa, but the adam have a mafursim. Once three people know about it, that's a dover hamafursim. That would be a shvusha. Zokt Gemara, time of the nikr. The only reason why we're saying you're chayiv al shvusha is because it's obvious to everybody on its face that this is a false shvua. What if it wasn't obvious to everybody? And people don't know. Is it Evan? Is it Zov? That's not a Shavuos anymore. So then you're over Mishum Shavuos Bitoy. That falls into the parsha of Shavuos Bitoy, which means it would bring a carbon. It would bring a carbon if it turned out that it was false. The same kasha. According to Shmuel, who holds you need to be able to make the shvua in past tense in order for a shvua according to Shmuel, that you have to be able to make the shvua in future tense in order for your shvua of past tense to be valid. This is an example of a shvua that doesn't have a future tense. You can't swear that this amud will be Zav. Whatever it is, right? So therefore, even if you made a shvua on Elisha Avar, it shouldn't be a shvua's bitui. Yet, what are we saying over here? Haloi niker over mishum shvua's bitui. So the problem is, according to Shmuel, you wouldn't be over mishum shvua's bitui because you couldn't swear on the lava. That's right, but it has to be the present, the past. If it's Zov, it's something about the past. It was constructed out of Zov, right? So Zog to Gemara, who might have farklo. If you look at the Lashon HaBraisa, the Lashon HaBraisa does not say that if it's not nicker legilbul b'nei adam, it's a shvuas bitui. The Braisa says if it's nicker to gimel b'nei adam, it's a shvuas shav. But if it's not nicker to gimel b'nei adam, it doesn't say what it is. The Gemara made a dik, it must be a shvuas bitui. Zok to Gemara, Zok to Rava, no, that's not what it means. Who ma'azav avum farkla nicker over mishum shvuas shav. That's what the Braisa says. The dik part loy nicker over mishum shvuas sheker. It's talking not a shvuas bitui. According to Shmuel, it wouldn't be a shvuas bitui. You wouldn't make a carbon for it. But if you swore false, then avada, you are going to get mach. If you swore on an amud that's Evan, and you swore that it was Zav, and it wasn't a davar you do a lakoil, so it's not a shvuah shav, it's a shvuah sheker. What is a shvuah sheker? Any shvuah that you swore false, you get malchus. But avada, you don't bring a carbon for it. In order to bring a carbon, it has to fit a very discriminating set of parameters, and it has to be. You have to be able to swear on lahaba in order for your shvuah of Elisha Avar to work. Okay, Gavalt. Amar Abaye, Umayda Rav. Even though Rav said that the shvuah of Elisha Avar is valid, even though you couldn't make a similar shvuah of Labah, right? You can swear that Reuben threw a rock into the Yam, even though you can't swear in the future that Reuben will throw a rock into the Yam. He is Moida in one case. If someone told his friend, Shavua Shani Yodea Loch Edus. If someone makes a shvuah, to his friend, Reuben swears to Shimon, I swear that I know an edus that could help you in the entire. So now, Chaim, this now we're tapping on already shvuas edus. Vishtakach de lo yada, and it turned out that it was a false shvuah. He never knew edus. There, the potter. There already, Rav will be that it's potter, because you couldn't swear this on Allah Haba. Hoyel v'lasei b'chlal she'eni yotei lach edus. Because he wouldn't have, not because it's an alabah, he wouldn't have been able to swear that I don't know edus for you. Why couldn't he have sworn that I don't know Edis for you? He could. He could swear I don't know Edis for you. But if he swears I don't know Edis for you, right? That already falls into a different category. That's not a Shavuos Bitui. That's already Shavuos Edis. Remember, there's three categories for which you get a carbon out of the Yorid. There's for Shavuos Bitui, and then for denying that you know Edis. So Zokt Abaye a svara that if Zokt Abaye an interesting svara in Rav, if the Shavuos lav to parallel your Shavuos saying, right? What is the matching Shavuos that I know an Edus for you? The matching Shavuos will be I don't know an Edus for you. Since I don't know an Edus for you is not in the category of Shavuos Bitui, it's in a different category. Therefore, the Shavuos that I know Edus for you will also not work.
Isn't Shavuos when he can live? He says, I just.
Very, very good. Very good. I'm happy you brought it up. So you might ask, exactly what Chaim's asking. The Shavuos that I don't have Edus for you is not a Shavuos of Shavuos Hadayonim, because the Shavuos Hadayonim only happens when you do it in Bezdin. Zokt Rashi, it doesn't matter. Since it's tapped on in that category, even though you're not in Bezdin, it can no longer be a Shavuos Bitui. It's a big chiddush that Abai is saying. It doesn't fit into Shavuos Edus, but since it's a similar category, you don't have all the qualifications like a Posel The Posel you'd have the same question on. It still does not fall into the category of Shavuos Bitui. Let's see Rashi inside, because this is a shtickle stretch. Zokt the Heilige Rashi, Umoide Rav, Be'omer Shvua, Shani Yodelach Edus, Vishtakach Kalayada, so he was lying. The potter there will be potter from the carbon of Shavuos Bitui, Hoyel Velesa Be'en Yodelach, because the Shvua of Alav he couldn't have made over here. Umoide Rav, so now Rashi explains. The Afagav, the Loi Boila Bav even though Rav holds, you don't have to be able to swear the Shavuot on a Labah. You could swear a Shavuot that only applies to the Sha'avar. He does agree to Lava Hein Boy. It has to be a Shavuot that you could have sworn either way. So in order for you to be Mechayiv on a Shavuot that you made, that I did know Edus, you had to have also been able to make a Shavuos Bitui that you didn't know Edus. Yeah, you could swear that I know Edus, but lav loy mishkachas pei. You couldn't have sworn the other way. The lesser be'eni yedei. You could not possibly have sworn that I don't know Edus for you. Why not? The eni yedei Edus, swearing that I don't have Edus, lav mishum shvius bitui chayv rachmana lischayv b'chutz lebezd. That's not a shvuos bitui. Ela mishum shvuos ha'edus. You'll only be mechuyev for shvuos ha'edus, and therefore ve'enoi ela bebezdin u'baroi lahoy. So basically, what it's saying is, if you swear that you don't know an edus, that no longer is in the parsha of shvuos bitui. Once the Torah addressed it separately, that it's a shvuos ha'edus, it's no longer shvuos bitui, and this is not even a shvuos ha'edus either, because it's not a bezd, right? So therefore, this shvuah is basically a shvuah without a home. If someone swears shvuah she'eni yodei lach edus, it's a shvuah without a home. It's not a shvuah, and therefore, even if you swore that I do know the edus, it won't be a good shvuah because it's not isa b'lav hein. Because on the lav part, it's not a shvuas bitui anymore; it's in a different category. So this is a big chiddush, but that's what Abai is saying. Umoid Rav, v'ayim lechaver shvuah shani yodei lach edus v'ishtakach lo yodalei. The potter hoyel v'lesa bechlal she'eni yodei lach edus. What if someone swore yadati v'lo yadati? I knew edus or I didn't know edus. Now, right away, how could you have a shayla if this is a shvuas bitui? This is again shvuas edus. I didn't know edus. I didn't know edus. So zogen the Meforshim such as Tosfos that yadati v'lo yadati means it's not relevant to any type of din Torah that you're having now. It could be relevant one day in the future. So therefore, this yadati v'lo yadati does not fit into the category of Shavuos Edus. If we just, it's a small one-liner Tosfos. Yadati v'lo yadati machlokes lav hainu Shavuos Edus. Don't think that this is Shavuos Edus, because then of course it can't be Shavuos Bitui. The Ma'iri could go in she'enei tzarich achshav lo yisa Edus. The whole part of Shavuos Edus is right now the plaintiff or the defendant has a din Torah and he needs your testimony and he's asking for it. That's Shavuos Edus. But if it's just a general conversation, it's not directly related to a case, there the whole parsha of Shavuos Edus does not apply. So Nachamo, Yodati v'lo yodati is a machlokes. So Rashi, it will be a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. The isa b'lavahein, you could swear either way, and either way will be a Shavuos bitoy, but v'lesa b'laba. But it cannot possibly be laba. How could you swear, I will know or I won't know? How could you possibly know that? Now, I just touched this Gemara, not like Rashi, like the other Rishonim, that the reason why you can't swear about the future, I will know, I won't know, so how could you control whether or not you will know? But Rashi doesn't say that. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says, v'lesa b'laba, the nishba levatlas ha-mitzvahim. So everyone scratches their head. How is this nishba? How am I swearing, if I swear that I will know Edus or I won't know Edus, how is that nishba levatlas ha-mitzvah? So the Maharsha explains, Rashi means, it means when I'm swearing v'lo eda, I won't know in the future, I'm swearing that even if I know Edus for you in the future, and I won't come and say the Edus. That's how the Maharsha understands. Zok Gemara weiter. Hey aditi v'lo hey aditi. If someone swore about the past, did I say Edus for you? If I didn't say Edus for you, again, that will be also in machlokes Rav and Shmuel, because once again, you would not be able to swear. You would not be able to swear both ways. Okay. Zok Gemara weiter. Bishloime l'Shmuel. Shmuel would make sense to us. Why would Shmuel make sense to us? The Omar Milsa, the Lesa Bil Haba, if you couldn't possibly swear about the Shvu in the future, Loi Mechayev Alei L'Shavar. You won't be chayiv either if you swore about it in the past. Right? That was Shmuel Shita. Therefore, Lahaki Afka Rachmana L'Shvuas Edus Mechlal Shvuas Bitui. So that's why the Torah had to give Shavuos Edus its own category, as Rashi says, Uparsha Behedja, Uvahai Carbon Gufei. In the same carbon of Oil V'Yored, the Torah decided to carve out the Parsha of Shavuos Edus. The question is, if it's the same carbon anyway, why did the Torah have to make a separate category for Shavuos Edus? Shavuos Edus, if it didn't have a separate category, it would anyway fall into the category of Shavuos Bitui, and you would still bring the same carbon Oil V'Yored. So why was it necessary for the Torah to carve out a special Shavuot of Edus where you bring the same carbon of an Oil V'Yored, but make a special category for it? So Bishlama L'Shmuel Damar Milta B'Delesa B'Laba Lo Mechayv L'Shavar. So Shavuos Edus would never have been able to be a Shavuos Bitui. So it wouldn't have been a Shavuot at all. You wouldn't have brought a carbon Oil V'Yored for it. So Lahachi Afkar Achmana L'Shavuos Edus Mechlal Shavuos Bitui. Because if not, then there wouldn't be a chiyuv of a carbon Oil V'Yored for Shavuos Edus. Because you can't make it on the Laba, because that would, you don't know if you'll know Edus or not later. Elul Rav, according to Rav, where anyway Shavuos Edus would fit into the category of Shavuos Bitui, L'mai Hilchasa, Afkar Achmana. Why do we need that the Torah should make a separate category for Shavuos Edus? If the Torah mentioned nothing about Shavuos Edus, you would be mechuyev for the Shavuos Edus as any other Shavuos Bitui. As Rashi says, El Rav, L'mai Hilchasa, Kasvar Achmana. High carbon gufay. It's the same carbon as a Shavuos Bitui. It's not a V'Yored. Harei B'Chlal Shavuos Bitui. It's anyway Shavuos Bitui. Zok T'Gemara, because Rav holds you don't have to be able to swear on the Lahabal. So Zok T'Gemara, Amrur Rabban Kamed Abaye. They asked the Olim told Abaye, maybe this is why, according to Rav, you need a special category for Shavuos of carbon. For Shavuos of Edus is lechayuv letarti. Maybe it actually fits into two categories. Maybe it fits into the category of Shavuos Edus, and Sai fits into the category of Shavuos Bitui. And in fact, if you make a Shavuos Bitui, you bring two karbanos. Omer Lahu, Abai said that cannot be pshat in Rav, because tarti loy motzisu. It's impossible to say that you would be mechayiv him two karbanos. Why? You couldn't say that you're mechuyev two karbanos for Shavuos Edus, one out Shavuos Edus, one out Shavuos Bitui. The Tanya we're looking at Brisa. The pasuk says by the carbon Oil V'Yored, the nesham la'achas me'ela. You were over on only one of these, meaning in each violation you're only violating one avera, one chiyuv carbon. La'achas atam mechayvoi v'atam mechayvoi shtayim. So there's a special gili in the pasuk that even though technically it would fit into the Shavuos Bitui, and it would fit into Shavuos Eidos, you only bring one korban. So then the question remains, why was it necessary for the Torah to carve out a special category of Shavuos Eidos when according to Rav, it would anyway be mechuyev a korban because of a Shavuos Bitui? So Zok Gemara Labaya Bezai Lamai Hilchas after Achmana. So why did the Torah make a special category of Shavuos Eidos? Zok Gemara Lechidetanya. B'chulon nemar v'nela. By all the averis of an oil of a yored, you went into the Beis Hamikdash, but it was v'nela. You went into the shoygig. You made a Shavuos Bitui, but it was wrong. But v'nela, it was a mistake. V'kan loy nemar v'nela. By a Shavuos Eidos, it doesn't say v'nela. If when you swore that you don't know Eidos and you swore wrongfully, even if you swore b'mezid, you still bring the korban oil of the earth. And that's why it had to itemize special the Shavuos Eidos, because that applies even for a mezid. So the Rabbanan told Abaye, that doesn't help us. Ema b'mezid mechayev chada, b'shogig mechayev tarti. Maybe if you swore b'mezid, yeah, so then it's not in the category of Shavuos Bitui, and there you're mechuyev for Shavuos Eidos. But if you did it b'shogig, maybe you should still be mechuyev for Shavuos Bitui. So maybe if you swore b'shogig that you didn't know Eidos and you were wrong and you'd forgotten, you didn't do it on purpose, maybe you should be mechayev two karbanos. So they told Abaye, Lav Hanu the Amri, didn't I just tell you a minute ago? La achas at the mechayvay v'yat the mechayvay shtayim. Didn't I tell you that you cannot do two? V'i b'mezid mi ikatarti, and if he swore b'mezid that he didn't know Eidos, there wouldn't be two. So therefore, v'lama li lamute ha'ein chiyuv bitui b'mezid. There is no chiyuv bitui b'mezid. So therefore, why would you need to have the achas for mezid? The achas doesn't apply to mezid, because by mezid you wouldn't bring a Shavuos Bitui. So obviously the achas is coming to tell you that even in the case of a shoygeg, you would only bring one korban, even though technically it could fit into two. So to Gemara, Rava says a different reason why you don't need the pasuk of achas. Rava said you don't need the pasuk of achas. Mishum dahave davar shebechlal. Really, the shvu of Shavuos Eidos fits perfectly in to the klal of Shavuos Bitui. But for Yotza, yet the Torah took Shavuos Eidos out of the klal of Shavuos Bitui to tell us that it has its own category. The Yotza lidin b'davar achadash, and we learned a new thing. What is the new thing we learned about it? Rashi, we learned that this only applies when you're making a shvuah in reference to Eidos. Unlike a Shavuos Bitui, it has a different set of halachas, meaning it's only relevant to someone who's ru'uyin lahayid, a kosher aid, and uva besn, and he's standing in besn, right? Those are the parameters of a shvuas dayanim. So it was in the klal of a regular shvuas bitui, and then the Torah talked about it. Shvuas eidos. I'm sorry. It was in the klal of a regular shvuas bitui, and the Torah said no, but this is a little different. So the halach is davar hayoytzim in the klal, ein lach boy elach hidushoy bilvad. Therefore, once it was taken out of the sugya, out of the parish of Shavuos Bitui, and it was given special halachas, therefore we say it's its own category. It's no longer part of Shavuos Bitui. Michlal. So if you analyze this distinction between Rava's approach and Abaye's approach, it's mashma that Abaye's over Isa l'shavua ba'olam. Abaye's learning you needed a special pasuk to say that you don't get two karbanos. It must be that Abaye holds that the Torah is not taking Shavuos ha'edus out of the category of Shavuos Bitui. Rava is learning that the Torah is taking Shavuos ha'edus out of the category of Shavuos Bitui, but Abaye holds that we're leaving it into the category. V'amar Abaye Moide Rav. Didn't Abaye say that Moide Rav is Moide? That's how we started off the second half of this oven. We started off with something that we quoted from Rav. And Moide Rav, v'amar l'chavei shvua. There, Rav is moided that it's potter. Why? Because it's no longer Shavuos Bitui, right? That's how we started the sugya. That Rav would be moided that since the lav is no longer in the parish of Shavuos Bitui, because now it's in the parish of Shavuos Eidos, therefore such a shvua is not belavahain. But if you hold, Abaye holds that even a Shavuos Eidus is also in the category of Shavuos Bitoi. It's just also in the category of Shavuos Eidus. So then why did Abaye say that the Shavua of Shani Delach Eidus is not B'lavain? It's very much B'lavain. Because had you said, I don't know Eidus, that would also be a Shavuos Bitoi. Just because it would also be a Shavuos Eidus doesn't take away from the fact that it would also be a Shavuos Bitui. And we understood Abaye before that the reason why, when you said Shavuos Shani Delach Eidus, Vishtaka Kloyoda, is not a valid Shavuah, is because on the no side, oh, thank you very much. Because on the no side, it's not a Shavuos Bitui, it's only Shavuos Eidus. But it's not true. According to Abaye, it's both. Dr. Moore, you're right. If Abaye is saying over here that a Shavuos Eidus is also in the category of Shavuos Bitui, he must have been choizer from what he said according to the Rav. And come to according to Rav, if someone swore that I know Eidus for you and he was wrong, he would bring a carbon out of the earth al Shavuos Bitui, because he could have made a Shavuot that I don't know Eidus, and that would have also been a Shavuos Bitui. Abaye wasn't choizer. Chad Minai or Papa Amra. One of these two halachas was said by her Papa and not by Abaye. But it's the same conclusion that these two things don't stem. If you hold that Shavuos Eidus also fits into the category of Shavuos Bitoi, then you would have to agree in Rav that if you made a Shavuos that you do know Eidus, that would also be in the category of Shavuos Bitoi. A little bit complicated today.